A happy Thursday to you, Central Georgia. Thanks for tuning in here at 11 a.m. for a look at your extended forecast. Our front came through yesterday and brought us a broken line of some showers and even some thunderstorms. We did see a couple rumbles of thunder in East Central Georgia. So let's talk about the rainfall totals that we did see. And overall, this map has looked virtually the same over the last couple of days that we've continued to show it. Once again, most of Central Georgia just seeing a couple tenths of an inch of rain. Even some locations that I picked out, only a trace of rain or maybe a couple 100ths of an inch of rain up in Milledgeville. Same story down in Eastman. You can see some totals, maybe 8/10 of an inch just north of Cochran. On the northern side of Warner Robins, closer to Centerville, 4/10 of an inch of rain. Over to the east of Butler, close to Reynolds, about 6/10 of an inch of rain. And then some of those darker blue spots still equating to totals that are under an inch over the last 24 hours. But some areas did luck out, just like we've been talking about the last couple of days, maybe just over an inch of rain over in portions of Wheeler County, southeast of Alamo, 1.5 inches of rain in this green spot that you see in between Dublin and Wrightsville, right on the Lawrence and Johnson County lines. And then once again, another 1.5 inches of rain around Swainsboro. We did see some of those yellow pockets in a select few areas, not in Central Georgia, but this is over to the east of us, just north of Statesboro, down in Bullitt County. 3.5 inches of rain. Boy, that would have been useful for some of the widespread totals here in Central Georgia. So it was a fairly broken line of rain that we did see, and not everyone did record rain. Middle Georgia Regional Airport was actually one of those areas that didn't record rain yesterday. So your total for October, we had 2 consecutive days of recording rain on October 5th and October 6th. So that was this past Sunday into this past Monday. 0.45 inches of rain so far, which all in all running right around where we should be at this point of October, a couple days, or I guess I should say about 9 or 10 days into the month of October. Your average sits just above 2.25 of an inch of rain, which it looks like, okay, we continue at this pace that we're at currently, we probably should get very, very close to that number. Well, that does not look to be the case, and we'll talk about why that is coming up at the kind of end of this. As we settle into next week, it does look to be a pretty dry stretch. Your record set back in 1959 of just over 9 inches of rain, 9.39 inches of rain to be exact. But it is Thursday, so that means we have our latest update on our drought monitor. And we haven't seen too much change with this, but we have seen a little bit of changes. First and foremost, we actually see the moderate drought conditions that were on the western side of Upson County. They have been expanded a little bit farther eastward, portions of Crawford County now within this, Upson County, Lamar, down to Taylor County, and down to Macon County. Our south and southeastern counties still remain in the moderate drought criteria that they were under, and we actually see portions of a severe drought creeping really close to Lake Blackshear and Chris County, and portions of a severe drought are expanded into that western edge of Upson County. So just seeing an expansion of some of the moderate and maybe even severe drought conditions. Most of Central Georgia does still find themselves under abnormally dry conditions. Areas like Milledgeville, Eatonton, over to Wilkinson County, places like Irwinton, Macon, Warner Robins, and Perry, along with that Sandersville, Sparta, some of these counties that we just don't have enough room to put the location on. So this is as of October 7th, so that's going to be as of this past Tuesday, and we get the release 2 days after that every Thursday. We'll continue to see if maybe some of the rainfall totals from yesterday or even getting back into late Tuesday are going to be taken into account with the latest update of the drought monitor next week. But overall, we didn't receive too much in the way of rain. I don't think we're going to see much change in those conditions. So we were talking about what a moderate drought meant as of last week, as we had many counties down to the south and southeast that were expanded into that. But taking it a step farther, because we have portions of Upson County that are under a severe drought, what does that mean specifically? It's basically going to mean the same thing that the moderate drought does, just a bit more of, or on the extreme nature rather, I should say. Crops are going to be stressed, soil is going to be hard, and once we get through kind of the end of this relatively wet stretch, I guess you could call it, over the last couple of days, conditions are going to get dustier than usual, just given how much or how unsaturated that the ground is and the soil continues to be. Small streams are going to dry up. So we were talking about how stream levels and maybe some swamp levels are going to continue to go down and be very, very low, and the water temperatures are going to be a little bit warmer in light of that shallower water. Well, those small bodies of water are going to begin to dry up, River levels are also going to continue to run low. And what you need to know with this is if you are under severe drought conditions, which is mainly to the west of Thomaston right now, this isn't of widespread concern here for central Georgia. You'll want to continue to look out for and follow the guidance from officials like things like wildfire safety, any alerts that you see from the National Weather Service, from the drought monitor. Obviously, just try to continue to maybe water your plants and maybe even some of the outdoor vegetation that you have in your backyard garden a little bit more frequently, mainly in the early morning hours or into the evening hours, so you're limiting the amount of evaporation that occurs. And after you water them, putting a bit of mulch on top of them so you're containing all of that moisture that you just put down into the soil is going to be a useful strategy. Other than that, you're probably going to want to stop watering things like your lawn, just your everyday plants out there, because they're built to withstand things like this, these dry stretches that we do go under. But most of central Georgia under abnormally dry or moderate drought conditions, it just means that you're seeing maybe some of these impacts on a much smaller scale. So maybe just your plants are needing some hydration throughout the day because Mother Nature is not giving them any of that natural hydration. You're going to start to see mainly things like tree stress. Once you get into a severe drought, we can actually start to see tree decay begin, which is not very widespread, very thankfully right now, but we don't want to continue to see those conditions get more and more widespread. But overall, it does look like we do have the possibility for that. Cooler and drier air is on its way. It has begun filtering in as early as this morning. We've continued to see the northeasterly breeze usher in that cooler and drier air behind our frontal boundary. Chilly mornings and nice days will be the story for the next couple of days, and that's just talking about the temperatures, not necessarily going to be a nice afternoon in terms of what it looks like outside. And we will have a quick warm up as we head into next week, but that's going to come with a bit of a catch, and that catch is going to be a good thing in the form of some lower humidity. Here's a look around the quad in central Georgia. It's been a gloomy atmosphere all morning long. We are continuing to see that as we head closer and closer to the midday hour and into the early afternoon time frame. We in fact actually saw a brief shower down at the Georgia National Fairgrounds very early this morning. It did allow for maybe some puddles over there on the walkways and the blacktop of the Georgia National Fairgrounds, but it looks like a lot of that has dried up, and the folks that made their way out to the Georgia National Fair when the gates opened about an hour ago are having no problems whatsoever. But there is going to be some lingering water in some areas that saw some of the spotty showers early this morning. Overall, it will be a story of mostly cloudy skies, and some of those puddles and maybe wet lying surfaces are going to be a bit slower to dry up because we don't have much in the way of sunshine to evaporate any of that water at the surface. It will eventually dry up, but maybe just going to take a little bit longer than it would on a mostly sunny or a crystal clear day. Here's a look at your temperatures. How about this? Everyone is below the 70-degree mark. We actually started to see areas like Eatonton, Sparta, up into Milledgeville. They continued to see their temperature drop as we got into around sunrise time all the way until we really got into 9 a.m. Temperatures got as low as 63 and 64 degrees up there this morning, but now it looks like that the cooler air is a lot more widespread. Almost everyone in central Georgia is in the upper 60s here at 11 a.m. and we do have a few mid-60s up in our northwestern counties. 64 at the lowest in Thomaston, and 69 degrees looks to be the warmest number in areas like Gordon, over to Swainsboro, down in Rochelle, down in Cordele. So that is definitely a far cry from what we have been seeing over recent days. And very thankfully, we're not matching the temperature or the numbers in areas like New Orleans and over into Houston, which are sitting at 80 degrees, Panama City at 82 degrees, but Orlando takes the cake with an 86-degree number. You can see that cooler air is present all across the eastern United States, whether you're somewhere in the low to mid 70s like Jackson and Montgomery, but this wedge setup is really helping our temperatures feel a lot like areas over to the east of us and up into the northeast. Take a look at that, some flashes of blue color, something we have only seen over in the Rocky Mountains as of recently. That's beginning to filter down the Appalachian Mountains into areas of Pennsylvania, West Virginia, getting all the way into western North Carolina, and maybe some darker green stretching into the northern portion of Georgia. Here's a look at your dew point temperatures. Not widespread no color just yet, But we've had dew point temperatures in the upper 60s, patchy areas of dark green like you see down in Cordele. That was present all over the area this morning. We've continued to see that area of no color push down from the north and the northeast, and that's why you see a lot of dew point temperatures in the 50s now. In the farther south that you travel, you start to see some dew point temperatures in the low 60s, maybe the mid 60s, but we're continuing to filter out whatever muggy conditions that we've had at the beginning of the work week as we head towards the end of the work week and the weekend ahead. So obviously, upstate South Carolina, up closer to the Appalachian Mountains, that's going to be where your cooler air continues to filter in from. And it's more prominent in the north and northeastern portion of the state of Georgia. But eventually we will continue to push any form of that light green color back down towards the south. And following with that is going to be these patchy areas of dark green, which is going to be your pretty muggy air in areas closer to Albany, down towards Panama City. Don't quite know if the muggy air gets out of the picture in areas like northern Florida, but that doesn't pertain to our forecast whatsoever. It is breezy, and it has been breezy all morning long. Very early this morning, we started to see this shade of yellow creep into our northeasternmost counties, and then it got a lot more widespread. So now everyone in central Georgia, anywhere from around a 5 to 15 mile per hour sustained wind. At the most, I think we see 14 in Macon, 14 in Eastman, and a 14 over in Swainsboro and Vidalia. But it's those occasional wind gusts that can get up to 20, maybe even 25 miles per hour. Some isolated spots could even have some gusts up to 30 miles per hour. We already saw that present in Cochran early this morning. But at the most, we see some gusts up to 20, 21, and 22 miles per hour in Cordele, Cochran, and Macon, respectively. We're going to continue to hold on to those breezy conditions for quite a while. We'll talk about just how long coming up in just a little bit. Hour by hour, we'll eventually make our way back to the 70s, and as we go into the afternoon, cloud cover is going to steadily try to fall apart, but 73 or 74 for a high temperature later on today, that's going to be feeling mighty, mighty nice. Yesterday's almanac, we hit a high temperature of 88 degrees here in central Georgia. We definitely overshot what the models were thinking by about a degree or two, but 6 degrees above average for this time of year, 82 what we typically are seeing our average high temperature around, and 64 for your morning low yesterday. We haven't even gotten close to that average low in the upper 50s as it's continued to steadily tick down really quick, about a degree every couple of days. In fact, for today specifically, your average low is already down to 56 degrees. But no rain at Middle Georgia Regional Airport. Your departure of rain, we're still 3.5 inches above where we should be at this point in the calendar year. Sunrise yesterday just past 7:30 at 7:34 in the morning, and it's been hard to really get a good glimpse of that because we've had plenty of clouds or fog in the sky during that sunrise time. And sunset yesterday, 7:10. So we are creeping closer and closer to our last 7 p.m. sunset of 2025, and then eventually your sunset's going to get very, very early. So we had some spotty morning showers. Now I think it's really just going to be a story of gloomy and overcast skies. So more clouds than sun as we transition into this afternoon. That steady breeze continues to be present, anywhere from around 10 to 15 miles per hour. That's consistently, but the occasional gusts can get up to 25 miles per hour and a couple isolated spots like I mentioned. The potential for a gust up to 30 miles per hour going to be a bit of a bad hair day, and we've had our fair share of breezy conditions over the last week and a half here in central Georgia, just continuing to have that factor in your forecast. 73 for a high temperature is what I went with. We might see a 74 degree mark, but overall 73 or 74 paired up with that significantly drier air is not only going to be well below average by about 7 or 8 degrees, it's also just going to be quite amazing feeling, that first real taste of fall. And it's a bit of a picture of a gloomy fall day that we've seen so far. Here's your satellite and radar picture. Actually still holding on to a few light showers down in Telfair, Wheeler, Montgomery counties, just to the north of Hazelhurst, down to the south of McRae and Alamo. Our southern counties have been the areas that we've been wanting to highlight. If you remember yesterday, I was talking about whatever we see in the way of morning rain is going to mainly be for our southern counties, and that did come to fruition. Some of those showers actually started out up here near Wrightsville, Irwinton, downtown Dublin. They started north of I-20, but they steadily crept down towards, or not I-20, excuse me, I-16. But they steadily crept down to the south of the interstate. Overall, what we're left with now is a very gloomy atmosphere, not only here in central Georgia, but that continues to be the case across most of the state of Georgia. So you will see a few spotty sprinkles here and there. Your rain chances are a lot better up in, say, the Charleston area off the Atlantic coast. This is going to be an area that gets its fair share of rain, whether it's over the Atlantic Ocean or maybe into coastal Georgia, coastal South Carolina, as a coastal low pressure center is going to form along our boundary that is continuing to move down towards the south. And taking a look at your surface map, here's where that boundary is currently located. It's actually continuing to progress through the very southern edge of the state of Georgia, and that's going to kind of stall out as it continues to move down towards the south, and then we'll start to see a center of low pressure establish itself along this boundary as it becomes stationary, and then it's going to start to rotate counterclockwise, and that will result in a fair share of some tropical rain up in the eastern half of the United States over the next couple of days. So I was just taking a look at some of the radar imagery, and it does look like you can see flashes of green here and there all over to the west. We actually saw our fair share of migration of birds this morning. That typically is what happens when you start to get a big change in your weather system. Those birds are going to migrate somewhere where it is going to be a bit warmer. So our satellite and radar picture, if you tuned into the 24/7 stream, it was quite messy with a lot of widespread green in the picture. And speaking of that widespread green, well, not necessarily widespread green, I guess I should just really say green. We'll have the gloomy atmosphere into this afternoon. And one thing that we've seen with the latest change, this latest update of the graph model, actually holding on to our fair share of spotty light showers throughout the day. So you may just want to keep the umbrella and the raincoat handy all throughout your Thursday. Overall, it's not much of a rain chance. It's going to be very brief if you do catch anything in the way of a shower. And then conditions will start to clear out as we go overnight. But the more cloud cover we have, the lower your high temperature is going to get later this afternoon. But as we get the clearing overnight, that's going to allow for our temperatures to finally drop down in terms of what your morning lows are. Remember that average low I was telling you about, 57 yesterday, went down to 56 this morning. We're going to welcome in some upper 50s into the forecast as you walk out the door on Friday morning. Pairing that up with the steady breeze still coming out of the northeast, it's going to be a bit of a chilly morning. You're going to want to make plans to maybe dress warm for the mornings, but as you go into the afternoon, conditions will feel a lot more pleasant. And speaking of the afternoon, we'll also see the return of cloud cover. So Friday, also going to hold on to the gloomy conditions, maybe the chance of an isolated sprinkle or two. It looks like less likely of a rain chance for Friday as opposed to today. But overall, we'll continue to keep the very minuscule rain chances in the forecast because take a look at what's down to the south and southeast of us. That's widespread rain, and it's going to begin to start to spin counterclockwise as the low pressure center starts to establish itself. As that system deepens, it will have its fair share of tropical rain and will be right on the edge, the kind of the northwestern edge of this low pressure center as it does continue to move up the Atlantic coast. So this is going into Friday night. We see plenty of that rain starting to move up to the north and the northeast. Plenty of gusty winds right off the Atlantic coast of the United States. So here in central Georgia, the farther east and the farther southeast that you live throughout Friday and throughout Saturday, that's where your best rain chances are going to be because you're a little bit closer to the center of all of that moisture. So some of that moisture could stretch into areas that are on our easternmost periphery right here in central Georgia. If you live in Upson County, Taylor County, you're more than likely not going to see any rain over the course of the next couple of days after we get through what's going to be a bit of a gloomy and maybe slightly dreary forecast for your Thursday. The good news is not looking like widespread rain chances, and it's going to be a very, very fall-like forecast for your football Friday night. Exactly how the weather should be in the middle of October for some of those football games. Now we go into Saturday morning. Where do you see the cloud cover? Where do you see some of the light rain chances? That is farther over to the east in central Georgia. Some of those light showers could clip our eastern counties as we go into the late morning to early afternoon time frame. We could have some passing cloud cover here and there, but overall, we'll still get some peaks of sunshine, and I do think our high temperature on Saturday will be a bit warmer than what we're going to see on throughout today and throughout your Friday. That takes us all the way to Sunday at 1 a.m. Still some of that moisture trying to linger in the near vicinity of us. I think as the system continues to move up to the north and the northeast, that's where your rain chances are going to increase. So best chance of seeing some of that light rain to the southeast on Friday. On Saturday itself, it looks like it's going to just be our eastern counties. And then as we go into Sunday, I would imagine our northeastern counties have a shot of receiving a light shower or a sprinkle. So your fair forecast for your Thursday, bit different than what we've been talking about recently. Northeasterly breeze, sustained and consistently blowing at around 10 to 15 miles per hour. The occasional gust could get up to around 25 miles per hour throughout today. I have edited this graphic a little bit from what I did show this morning. It does look like maybe we still have the chance of a brief and a light shower throughout most of the afternoon for your fair forecast. Going to be gloomy, maybe running across a sprinkle or two, but just maybe pack the rain jacket or the umbrella, and then that light shower will be out of the picture fairly quickly. 72 for a temperature at 4 p.m. That temperature was 83 yesterday. We have seen a substantial drop in that afternoon high temperature because of two factors. Number one, the cloud cover not allowing much sunshine to break through and warm some of those surface temperatures up, but also that cooler and drier air that continues to funnel in from the northeast. As we go into closing time, going to be a cool and breezy into day 7 or day 8 of the Georgia National Fair. I think it is day 8 today. Sunset later on tonight, 7:08 p.m. So once again, look out around that 7 p.m. time. Maybe you'll get a glimpse of the sunset, but overall there's looking to be your fair share of cloud cover in the forecast. So not too sure if you would actually get a glimpse of the sun beginning to set. So 10% chance of a rain, mainly to the southeast. I would probably go back and tweak that a little, maybe a 20% chance of just a light shower all across central Georgia, but that's just basing it on the last model run of Future View. Again, some areas going to see rain, but more than likely you'll just remain dry and mostly cloudy throughout the rest of today. 54 for a morning low temperature tomorrow. Yes, that's one of the coolest numbers we've seen over the last couple of weeks, so it is definitely going to be a bit chilly, and you're pairing up temperatures in the mid-50s with a pretty steady breeze as you walk out the door tomorrow. 71 for a high temperature and still a pretty gloomy atmosphere, maintaining that 10%, that minuscule chance of seeing a drizzle or a sprinkle at random times throughout the day, but not going to equate to much. And then you saw 78 as we go into Saturday. Your best rain chance is going to be the farther east that you live throughout the day on Saturday. Speaking of the humidity values, as we go throughout the rest of today, you continue to see no color whatsoever continue to push down into central Georgia. By the time you walk out the door tomorrow, I'll probably be talking about dew point temperatures in the mid-40s here in central Georgia. That is getting into virtually no moisture in the air whatsoever. We could see a rebound of that light color throughout times as we go throughout Friday afternoon. Once again, as we see that humidity try to rebound just a little bit, it could be enough to sprout a very light shower, but overall it looks like that will be the case each and every afternoon, and areas farther to the east of us will have more humidity than we do here in central Georgia. And going across Saturday afternoon, you see that light green color try to push from the east over towards the west across the state of Georgia, and then we go into Sunday, and it still looks like each and every night that we go into the overnight hours, early morning hours, that wedge front is continuing to start to reinforce the drier air that is present across our forecast. In terms of your breezy conditions, how long do those last? Let's go to this evening. Looks like some areas could see the breeze finally subside, but you can see the farther south that you live, it looks like we're going to hold on to those gusty winds up to 20 and 25 miles per hour. The breeze is also going to welcome you out the door as you go out or make your way out to work on Friday morning. Gusts up to 25 miles per hour once again possible. That will be possible as long as you keep this yellow color on this Future View wind gust map. Still a breezy Friday afternoon, trying to subside a little bit for football Friday night, but if you know anyone that's kicking in any of the football games tomorrow night, might want to let them know it's going to be a bit of a windy game, so prepare accordingly for some of that steady breeze. And it's going to be coming out of the north and the northeast if they want to maybe cater some of their kicks a little bit over farther to the right or farther over to the left, just to make sure that you kick it through the uprights. Now you go into Saturday morning, the wind gusts once again, still up to 20 or 25 miles per hour, maybe going down slightly as you go into Saturday afternoon. Overall, what you should know is the breeze will be present each of the next 3 days before finally Sunday morning we see signs of that breeze at least getting out of the forecast, and that's going to be because the center of low pressure continues to move up the Atlantic coast. The farther that gets away from us, the less gusty our winds will be. And take a look at how gusty those winds are up in areas like Wilmington, up in Morehead City on coastal North Carolina. 34, 32 miles per hour, and in some isolated spots, I imagine it will start to get up into maybe even tropical storm force winds that could be in the forecast. So this morning was our last above average morning for quite some time. We'll be bouncing around the mid and low 50s each morning over the course of this weekend and continuing that trend into the beginning of next week, starting out around 54 on Monday. Each of these numbers is going to be below your average low of 56 degrees, but by the time we get to next Monday, that average low very well might drop down to 55 degrees, just given how much it has dropped over the last couple of days. Afternoon highs going to be in the 70s for the next couple of days, and then we will be very quick to return to the 80s Sunday into Monday. 81 and 83 finally getting back around average or at least above average. But it's not going to feel like the last 3 days have felt. We've had the muggy conditions that maybe made those feels-like temperatures a bit warmer. We're going to continue to pair up those low 80s with substantially drier air as we go into the beginning of next week. And we don't see any signs of that drier air really leaving your forecast over the course of the next week. Take a look at your long-range models. Maybe a slim sprinkle chance on Sunday. After that, Monday, completely clear. Tuesday, completely clear. Going into Wednesday, there is just nothing going on in the eastern half of the United States. We go all the way to next Thursday. You might see some very light shades of green trying to pop up. Overall, rain is going to be very hard to come by as we go into the near future. Let's get a quick update on the tropics. Tropical Storm Jerry, which formed as of 2 days ago, still expected to strengthen into a Category 1 storm sometime later on Friday. And it looks like as it makes its way up towards Bermuda, it's going to turn on the right turn blinker, and it's going to go back out into the Atlantic Ocean. Still moving at a pretty decent speed, and it is going to have some implications over in the Caribbean. We do actually see a tropical storm watch issued for some of these Caribbean islands like Anguilla, Antigua, and Barbuda, which actually just got upgraded to a tropical storm warning, which means tropical storm force conditions are looking likely in Antigua and Barbuda. Then you do see going down the Caribbean, Guadeloupe, we could see a tropical storm watch, as well as areas to the west of Antigua and Barbuda. That would be St. Kitts and Nevis. And then, of course, you don't see areas like Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands up here that are included in any of these tropical storm watches or warnings. And then as you go down to the south of Guadeloupe, closer to Dominicana and Martinique, those areas are not included in any of these tropical storm watches or warnings. So having some implications, but tropical storm watch or warning is definitely not really the most drastic impacts that you can see with these tropical systems. And then the National Hurricane Center, I imagine, is twiddling their thumbs just a bit because they outlined this area up in the northern Atlantic Ocean. Take a look over there, Lisbon, that is Portugal. So a 10% chance of development on this area right here, more than likely the remnants of one of our tropical systems very recently. Overall, I don't see this system really getting its act together, but you can start to see some spin associated with it. Might send some moisture over into portions of western and northwestern Europe, way, way, way far away from the United States. Not going to have any implications in our forecast. So here's a look at the names that we still have to claim. Karen, then Lorenzo, Melissa, Nestor, and then we go down into this very last column right here. So far, Jerry was claimed the 10th named storm that we've seen so far in the Atlantic hurricane season. And just basing those upon average and what was forecasted, we are still well below those numbers. 4 named storms below average, 7 named storms below what Colorado State forecasted for us. Still below what we see on average in terms of hurricanes. So 7 named hurricanes, and then 9 is what was forecasted by Colorado State. We still stand at 4, but more than likely Jerry is going to claim number 5 on that. Major hurricanes, on average, we typically see 3. That's been the most shocking thing. It is looking like it's going to shape up to be a below average hurricane season, but we've already met average in terms of our named major hurricanes. Hurricane Erin and Hurricane Humberto both got up to Category 5 status, and Hurricane Gabrielle also did claim major hurricane status, but Colorado State forecasted 4 for us, and once again, we are still trending below average when it comes to that. So for your 7-day forecast, going to be highlighted by fall-feeling weather over the course of the next 3 days. Minuscule 10% chance of rain as we go into Saturday. Then the steady warm-up will begin. More sunshine in the picture. We don't see signs of rain for quite some time. And again, 83, 84, and 85, those do look to be on the warmer side, but the mornings will still be nice and cool and crisp, somewhere in the 50s to start out the day. And then those mid-80s are also going to be paired up with drier air. And here's a look at our precipitation outlook for October 14th through the 18th. So this is going to be the beginning of next week all the way into next weekend. It looks like we have a really good chance of staying below what we normally see for precipitation in this period. It does look like it's going to be an extended dry period. So that's going to have implications on our drought monitor, but we'll continue to keep you updated week by week as we get new updates to that. So that's everything you need to know for your extended forecast. Enjoy some of those cooler temperatures finally in the forecast, and make sure that you enjoy the drier air that will continue to be present all throughout the beginning of this weekend.